You know the feeling. It arrives somewhere around mid-morning, or perhaps just after lunch. Something went wrong. Not catastrophically, not irreversibly, but enough. You missed the hour you had set aside. You reached for comfort when you had promised yourself restraint. You said something you regret, or failed to say something you should have. And then, quietly, almost without noticing, you made a second decision, the one that does the real damage. You decided the day was over. Not the calendar day. The day that mattered. The one you had intended to live with some measure of intention and dignity. That day you told yourself was gone, and so you surrendered the rest of it. The afternoon, the evening, the final quiet hour before sleep, to whatever required the least of you. This is not weakness. It is one of the most human things there is. But the Stoics had something to say about it. And what they said was not a reprimand, it was an invitation. The first teaching is this: the day is not a single object. We speak of days as though they are vessels, fill them well or spill them entirely. But the Stoic tradition understood moral life as something continuous and layered. The ancient Stoics were deeply concerned with the practical application of virtue, not as a grand gesture performed once, but as a quality of attention renewed at every turn. Duty and right action, in their understanding, were not things you either had or had not accomplished by noon. They were things you could return to. The moment of return was itself a moral act, perhaps the most honest one available to a person who had already stumbled. The day is not a vessel, it is a harbour, and a harbour does not cease to offer shelter because the morning tide was rough. The second teaching concerns what the Stoics called voluntary hardship, the deliberate practice of choosing difficulty when ease is available. This is often misunderstood as a kind of theatrical self-punishment, a performance of toughness. It is nothing of the sort. The purpose of voluntary hardship is to loosen the grip that comfort holds over your choices. When you have practiced doing without, when you have sat with discomfort and found that it does not destroy you, you are less likely to collapse into ease the moment the day turns difficult. You have already rehearsed the return. The practical application is modest and immediate. When the afternoon has already gone wrong, the temptation is to compound the softness, to eat poorly because you already ate poorly, to abandon the walk because you already abandoned the morning. Voluntary hardship teaches you to interrupt that chain, not with severity, but with a single deliberate act of choosing the harder thing. One small act of self-governance, taken freely, in the wreckage of an imperfect day, is worth more than a flawless morning that required no effort at all. The third teaching is about the nature of the inner citadel itself. The Stoics spoke often of an interior space, a place within the self that external events cannot reach unless you open the door to them. This is not a claim that suffering is imaginary or that circumstances do not matter. It is a more precise observation that your response to circumstances is always, in some measure, yours to determine. The storm outside the harbour does not dictate what happens inside it. When a day goes wrong, we tend to experience the wrongness as total, as though the failure has flooded every room. But the inner citadel, properly understood, is not a room that floods. It is the capacity to observe what has happened, to name it honestly, and to ask what remains possible. That question, what remains possible, is the door back in. It does not require that you pretend the morning was fine. It only requires that you stop treating the morning as a verdict on the rest of your life. The fourth teaching addresses the particular cruelty of the all-or-nothing mind. There is a pattern of thinking that the Stoics would have recognized immediately, even if they named it differently. It is the belief that partial failure is equivalent to total failure, that because you did not do everything you intended, you may as well do nothing at all. This is not logic. It is a form of pride, disguised as despair. It says, if I cannot be perfect, I refuse to be present. The Stoic response to this is not encouragement in the modern sense. It is something quieter and more demanding. It is the observation that virtue is not a score. You do not accumulate it in the morning and spend it down by afternoon. Each moment of genuine effort is complete in itself. The person who returns to their better self at 4 in the afternoon, after a day of drift and distraction, has done something real. They have not recovered a lost day. They have created a new moment, and that moment is not diminished by what preceded it. Temperance, one of the 4 cardinal Stoic virtues, is not about never losing your footing. It is about the moderation of response, including the response to your own failures. To punish yourself extravagantly for a bad morning is itself a form of excess. The temperate person notes what happened, makes no drama of it, and returns. The 5th teaching is perhaps the most quietly radical of all. Beginning again is not a concession. It is the practice itself. We tend to imagine that the disciplined life is one in which the need to begin again rarely arises, that the truly self-possessed person simply does not have bad mornings, does not drift, does not reach for comfort when they had promised themselves otherwise. This is a fantasy, and a damaging one. The Stoic tradition, read carefully, suggests something quite different. The practice of philosophy is not the achievement of a state in which struggle ceases. It is the cultivation of a character that knows how to respond when struggle arrives. And struggle always arrives. The Stoics understood that the application of virtue to daily life was not a matter of grand resolution, but of continuous, unglamorous return. The person who begins again before the day ends, who does not wait for the clean slate of tomorrow, but finds one small act of integrity in the remaining hours, is not failing at discipline. They are demonstrating what discipline actually looks like when it is real rather than imagined. The harbour holds not because no storm ever reaches it, but because it was built to receive ships that have been through weather. So here is what the Stoics are asking of you, in the plainest terms available. Not perfection, not an unblemished record, not the performance of a person who never wavers. They are asking you to notice when you have drifted, to resist the temptation to make that drift into a story about who you are, and to do one thing, one small, honest, unglamorous thing before the day closes. Not to redeem the day, not to cancel what happened, simply to demonstrate to yourself that you are still the one making choices. The harbour is still there. The storm was real. Come in. If this moved you, comment the Citadel holds below. It is our sign that you carry the philosophy with you. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.